Hello, everyone. My name is Tia Johnston Brown, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm the Executive Director of Youth Years at Ashoka USA. I'm delighted to be the moderator for this session and to welcome you to the Ashoka Changemaker Summit 2021, the global yearly milestone to share cutting-edge ideas and connect with like-minded changemakers from across the world. This year's edition explores a concept of a new togetherness, powered by the historical legacy of hundreds of community-led movements that have already recognized how togetherness has changed our world long before the global COVID-19 pandemic. For the next 45 minutes, we'll explore how direct-to-consumer brands can integrate changemaking as a core part of their business with the founders of the INKEY List. INKEY is a skincare company that launched in the United Kingdom in 2018. They are passionate about delivering and guiding knowledge to their large community of customers across the world. We all know that there's an accelerated rate of change in the world. Organizations that understand and respond to these changing landscapes are the ones that are going to thrive. And INKEY is absolutely one of these companies. They know that they must integrate the priorities and values of their purpose-driven customers alongside their business. The INKEY List is an incredibly innovative company that knows that with the right knowledge at the fingertips of their customers, that they are an extremely powerful force for change. Through this conversation, we'll explore how INKEY is going beyond revolutionary skincare to mobilize their customers as the change makers creating solutions to societal problems. To do this important work, INKEY's partnered with Ashoka over the last year, and I have been lucky enough to work with Mark and Colette, the founders of INKEY, who you're going to meet in just a minute, to create a world where everyone is a change maker. One of the most beautiful parts of our relationship is working with fellow entrepreneurs and founders. So, it's just a situation where our people and our organizations really share an entrepreneurial culture, and we're aligned to drive big, big change in the world. We simply can't rest until we've achieved societal level impact with our combined work. Before I introduce Mark and Colette, I just wanted to remind our viewers that members of the Ashoka and INKEY community and others following us from SwapCard can share questions at the end of the session. My colleagues are going to pass them along to us, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. And now let me introduce the outstanding individuals that I've been working with over the past year who are going to help bring this discussion to life. Welcome.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. This is a fun way to start my morning. So first we have Colette Laxton. And Colette has always been interested in learning about consumers' behavior and has worked across multiple brands and roles within the beauty industry. She's a true product visionary, driven by instinct and passion for building tribes and creating identity and purpose for new niche brands. And then we have Mark Curry. And Mark began his career as a microbiologist and a virologist and a science teacher in London. His creative entrepreneurial drive and passion for sharing knowledge and education is a really big part of INKEY's story and the company's vision of empowering consumers. So without further ado, let's kick this off. And in true Ashoka form, I wanted to start with both of you sharing one of your earliest entrepreneurial experiences, one of those moments where you really felt your power to create change. So how do you see those change maker qualities that you were practicing back in the day and you gained through your experience play out in your business and brand day to day?
So I think for me, it was probably age 14. We'll get to it, but everything that we do starts with knowledge and education. And I had the opportunity through my school to get some work experience opportunity at a local radio station. And having done that work experience for a week, I begged, steal and borrowed and said, please, please, please give me an opportunity. I'll do anything. I'll make cups of tea. I'll do anything. So this was, age 15, I think. So they said, okay, you can do the graveyard shift on a Sunday. There's no one else in the radio station and you can just press the buttons for the adverts. I said, I'll do it. I'll do it. So I did that for a year. I got more and more involved in the radio station and I ended up performing at one of their big galas. I then used that as a platform to go on to kind of launch my own singing career, age 16. So for me, that was the first moment where I felt powerful, that if you're given an opportunity and you can seek out opportunities, if you can hustle and be kind and get people to support you and become your cheerleaders, you can do anything. So literally from the age of 15, 16, I was, starting to understand how I could, monetize, my passions, but also, be with inspiring people in inspiring workplaces at a very, very young age. And it all just came from that seed of opportunity. So for me, I really believe in taking opportunities and hustling and seeking out as much as you can. And that kind of was a real moment for me where I thought, well, I'm not going to work 9 to 5. I'm not going to just follow a path that's laid out for me. I'm going to create my own destiny. So that was probably the first time I felt that kind of feeling of power as an entrepreneur.
And I think for me, it's probably younger, but a bit more impish. In my local estate, we created and started a little car cleaning business, which
Amazing.
Effectively meant we walked to the local richer neighborhood and looked quasi menacing, quasi helpful, and said, "Can we clean your car for a £5?" And £5. So a few of us started it, and then we got other kids in the neighborhood to kind of reach out and branch out. And for one summer, there was a lot of sweets and football magazines and God knows what that was bought from ourselves as almost this estate co-op of car cleaning extraordinaires that helped some kids entertain themselves, I guess, over a summer period, and earn some money to kind of help them through the summer holidays. As soon as it got to colder weather, which it is frequently here in the UK, that all disbanded pretty quickly. But acting on opportunity and being open to new things, and I think having a bit of resilience and relentlessness of knocking on every door, certainly is well embedded from that first experience that I had.
Do you know what, Tia? We've worked together for 4 years now, and we've never known either of those stories.
Really?
That's the first time we tell each other.
That's incredible. I'm so happy I could give you that gift. And I love this overarching theme of kind of having agency and having resilience at that young age. And one of the things that Ashoka finds is that the overwhelming majority of the social entrepreneurs we work with led at a young age. The same goes for entrepreneurs. And so in terms of these skills you were practicing so early on, how are they playing out within the INKEY culture and brand?
Yeah, I think resilience, you hit the nail on its head. There are very few peaks that you dare to recognize, or that it's just so fragile enough you don't really want to talk about it in case it kind of dissolves away. But there are a huge amount and relentless amount of challenges every day, and there has to be a inner mental resilience. There has to be a physical resilience as well at times. It is long, hard hours that you need to put in, and you have to stay externally and internally upbeat, optimistic, etc. in various circumstances, but be at the same time and often in parallel and often straight from call to call, particularly in a Zoom world. You have to not be able to let whatever the conversation that you've just had, be it amazingly good or amazingly bad or challenging or otherwise, and bounce from situation to situation with the same enthusiasm and momentum and energy as anything else. And I think, that is the same in business as it would be the same when you're trying to deliver change in any form of society. Nothing ever good comes easy, and making sure that you've got the right mindset, the right mental resilience, and you feel healthy and balanced physically to kind of endure the pressures that are going to come is really, really, really important.
and that's difficult for us as true entrepreneurs, but as we have a rapidly growing team, embedding that culture is really difficult. That kind of resilience, but along with that kind of hustle mentality, we try to empower our teams to have that same spirit. So they are their own entrepreneurs within the company. They own their own space, and we empower them to be able to make decisions. We don't lead, by authority in terms of making, understanding what every single person in the company is doing. We want to make sure everyone feels empowered and is able to kind of run their own function like their own business, and that's really important. I would say the resilience bit is way harder to build in a culture of a business, because I think, Mark says, there's something wrong with us sometimes. As an entrepreneur running a business, you sometimes, find ways to get through when you shouldn't. So it's just making sure we get that balance internally in culture. So we've got that hustle, that kind of great mentality, but what we're not doing is burning people out, especially in COVID times. It's been a really difficult time for people to maintain that resilience, for sure.
Yeah, and I think balance is important. No matter if you are in commerce, or you're in various NGO situations, or you're just trying to start something in your own community. I think making sure you approach it with balance is really, really important. And I think particularly in a business setting, recruiting people who demonstrate or have previously demonstrated both agency and resilience, to your point here, is almost as important as competence and functional expertise, particularly in the early days. And I would say that is probably true of any commercial startup, and I'd say has to be true equally for anything that's going to, no matter how big or small, invoke change.
Well, at Ashoka, we have felt the entrepreneurial spirit be alive and well at INKEY. It's just been so much fun to bring our teams together. So to dive into a little bit more about the work that you're doing in the world, we know that consumer brands have taken on various approaches to sustainability and positive social impact over the years. What do you think is different about INKEY's vision and approach, and what compels you to contribute to creating to this world where everyone's a change maker with Ashoka?
So there's 4 things that we've really focused on in this space. One is our approach to social impact and sustainability as a whole needs to stay true to who we are as a business and what our mission is. That's the first thing, is maintaining that truth with who we are as a business. Number 2, we've been super ambitious. We can go into detail on these, but number 2 is being super ambitious around trying to change the system versus offering a instant solution. We'll get into that because that is not easy, and we're finding challenges with you guys together to make sure that we can get enduring change but keep people excited along the way. Thirdly, collaboration is absolutely critical, and we can talk a little bit around our partnership and how important collaboration is to get to a bigger end goal. And ultimately, it starts internally. We can do amazing things out there, but unless we're making that kind of change and embedding a change-making culture internally in our business, it's never going to land. So they're the kind of 4 key kind of pieces that we've gone quite differently in terms of the way that we've approached this. So if we kind of go to number 1, which is who we stand for as a brand, knowledge is really the pillar of who we are and who we stand for.
Yeah, very much so. And particularly nowadays, consumers very much want that authenticity from a brand, that they're not just paying lip service. So making sure we picked a space that A, we felt great about, and B, that was genuinely going to have an impact was super, super important. I think the compare and contrast to others is they maybe don't go as deep in terms of that connection, or maybe there is a passage of least resistance, whereby even when we get to collaboration as a point, there are easy ways to partner up with charities to potentially give money away. but the killer question is, well, how much change is that making? And how is that going to be sustainable and viable for a long time? And that's the key part, is making sure there is a legacy to anything that we do. And the legacy that we're building in our company is all connected to knowledge. And so it was, for us, a natural kind of flow through that was at the center of any partnership that we looked at with regards to you guys in particular.
Yeah, so we always wanted to make an impact beyond beauty, and as Mark said, we could have given a load of school books to a school, or really just done something that's a really nice charitable link to knowledge. But we as two people are super passionate about education and the role that education can play. Mark, having been a science teacher as well, it really is kind of within us. So actually, how can we create lasting change with you guys through the power of knowledge? So that was really the crux of where we started, and trying to find a partner that delivered on that with us.
And I think it stays with you. So obviously I was a teacher as part of effectively one of the first Teach for America programs that came over here to the UK to work in socioeconomically challenging schools. And I think the other piece around it, and I know it's probably blurring into collaboration, but the more you do young and the more you almost instill it in your learning journey, the more it stays with you and the more you're likely to do something down the track. I think when I compare myself to people at school, or even people in university, where both Colette and I both paid our way through, they have very different outlooks on how, and more the how than anything. They do give to charity, or they do get involved in charitable causes, but how and the level of impact might not be as big as it could have been if they think about it in a different way, if they had that opportunity to engage in that kind of process when they were younger. So I think often, unless you are a business with it a little bit ingrained in your DNA, in some way, shape or form, it won't be as embedded, which, coming on to the next point in terms of systems change, is probably the biggest differentiator from our perspective.
Yeah, so we set ourselves a huge challenge with you guys, and my goodness, we were up for the challenge. So we wanted to make that lasting change, and we've been working with you guys on creating a Changemaker instrument that we're trying to embed into the education system. Gulp, it's massive, and you guys have absolutely, taken the challenge and done some incredible stuff. And we're in an interesting learning phase where we're understanding COVID world, trying to help support changing curriculum is probably the craziest thing we could all try and do, but it's really exciting for us to be part of a systems change that really can kind of outlive our company and that can outlive us. What that's not, though, is glamorous. And as a brand and as a business, you potentially want that kind of immediacy of, we're giving back, look what we've done. We're not getting that. So we're nearly a year into our partnership. I can't believe we're saying that. And change, we've not delivered change. We can't go out and say to the world, this is what we've done. We've done a hell of a lot of kind of work. I say we, you guys have done the legwork. Obviously, we just say our 2 penny. But yeah, you've done so much work to look at the kind of framework and the instrument and testing it. And it's a huge piece of work that we're doing. And it's going to take a long time to get that right, and a long time to kind of embed that with the teachers. So what I will say is, if anyone's looking for that kind of immediate feeling of gratitude, you aren't going to get it by creating that systems change. But it's really exciting for us, and longer term, if we can make a bigger impact with you guys, we know that that's the right way for our company to support change makers, and supporting young change makers has given us all of the kind of the warm fuzzy feeling that we could have ever wanted. Seeing young people and the impact that they're going to make on the world is pretty exciting. And our impact fund, we've called it the INKEY Impact Fund. and that's supporting young change makers in their missions. That's really exciting. And again, over the next 5 years, I can't wait to see the bigger impact that we can make versus, you know, providing 100,000 school books as an example. So the systems change bit was a big one for us, but was very, very, very important for our mission in terms of change making.
And I think that's the key point, the mission. Yes. So, you know, the ultimate mission of our business is to create more knowledge powered impact than the units we sell.
Eek.
And quite frankly, we can't do that with a kind of a one-for-one mentality. The economics just flagrantly don't stack up. And so it comes back down to, how does that goal, how does that mission get embedded in legacy, and therefore that locks you into time. Because if you shoot for that one-for-one, that buy this and get an hour of that or whatever else, it starts to be quite short-termist, and it starts to be just a house not built on with any foundations, because, you know, it's pretty transient. And I think that's where the systems change really is an investment from us, with not so much that you can see, because at the moment everything's going into the flagstone of the partnership, the foundations of the programs, and whilst you can't see anything yet, what's being prepped, primed and prepared is something that will hopefully stand more of a test of time than a more cursory partnership, and something that will really be a solid base to build upon for a long time to come.
So they are the two kind of pieces of approach. So really embedding it in who we are, our mission as a business, and then secondly, that kind of systems change versus that instant impact. So that's the 2 points on approach. And then in terms of the way that we've delivered that, and way we are delivering it is through two things. So collaboration. I could speak all day about how amazing the Ashoka team are in terms of the way that you approach and the way that you collaborate. So working with you to create a Changemaker instrument, we would never have been able to do, you know, anything half as amazing as you. Very talented people. My goodness, are you guys smart? On a call, we tend to understand about 30% of what you say, which is when you know you're in the right company, Tia. So we work and collaborate, and that's the way our business runs. We're all about collaboration. Find someone smarter than you to help you on your way. So the collaboration piece is massive. So working together to build that Changemaker instrument, working with you guys to identify the right ways to use our fund, the right change makers to be working with, you know, that collaboration is absolutely key. And those young change makers that are leading the fund, the collaboration we have personally with those change makers, honestly, I would never have expected for us to be able to have such personal connections with the young change makers involved in the program, whether it be through them telling their stories on our social media, them joining our team meetings. You know, it's been absolutely phenomenal, the collaboration with the young change makers themselves. And then thirdly is how do we galvanize that through collaborations, you know, the thing that we're good at, which is, you know, how do you amplify? So for example, when we first started the work with you guys, we have a partnership with an incredible influencer called Hiram, and we used his voice and his audience to be able to really shout about this community, and to be able to raise some funds for some specific activations, such as the Rekindle school project. So collaborating with the right people to share the message, again, was super interesting. So in the way that we're delivering this, collaboration is absolutely key, but more key for us is change internally. So what we didn't want to do is go out to the world and say, we're doing this amazing stuff, we believe in the power of young change makers, and not have that truly felt within the business. And that's really important to us, isn't it?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. And back to that point on, you know, this is a big, hairy vision, and the partnership is a really key enabler. It might not be as visible in the immediacy, but it's an investment in the future, and that investment actually does feel a bit more immediate with your team, and the culture that is created within your team in terms of that being a company that your team really want to be a part of and are proud to tell friends and family about in particular, and opening up opportunities that they didn't quite know existed as well.
So the way that we've done that is, number one, make it very, very, very apparent and visible. So within kind of the 5 pillars of our business, so our mission is we power purposeful change, and within that we have a whole pillar dedicated to being change makers. So it's about, within the company, the way that we act, the way that we behave, and the way that we empower our team is to make sure that everybody feels like their own change maker. You can talk the talk all day long, but unless you really embed that in who you are as a business, every single member of the team has this printed out, laminated, to make sure that truly feels like it's part of our culture. But we've done a few other kind of activations to make sure that it feels alive, because I think talking about a culture and actually doing and behaving and living and breathing it is quite different. So our empowerment collective is a huge piece of the business, where we have a group of people within the business that stand for different things. Some people are very, very passionate about diversity, some people are passionate about the planet. There's people with a lot of different passions, and we have a collective that come together and that be the voice of our business, and then come to us with incredible opportunities that they want us to support. So that's really important, to give them the power. We have a lot of activations that we do within the business. So we've had Changemaker challenges set by the young change makers, where we're getting our teams to set themselves challenges. So it's November Kindness Month at the minute. How are we getting people to kind of truly lead that change maker mindset? But also, within the company as a whole, how do you celebrate people that are really doing those small things to be those change makers? So there's some incredible people in our business that we highlight, and quite recently Jai Zhu in our team went to COP26, and he was able to be that brand voice and to be able to come back to the business and say how incredible it was. So how do you create a culture but also celebrate those individuals that really want to be change makers? So that's how we're trying to embed it internally. Is it perfect? No, it's not. Are we all very busy? Yes, we are. Is it easy to embed in your company? No, it's not. And we've got a long way to go. But we have absolutely the right intent, which is to make sure that the change making kind of, we live and breathe it every single day in the company.
Thanks. It's definitely an internal and external approach, and I think that it is hard work, but you are the foundation of the culture, and it's just obvious that change making and entrepreneurship are really kind of the bedrock of what's being built. And I love that you're looking at all the great work that's been done by others in your industry. But you're asking yourselves, what's next? Where can we go from here? What's the next big thing? And how can we push the limits? And, like you said, Colette, you could choose to go with a direct impact approach that's really easy to market to your customers, but you've chosen to look at a larger system at play. And in fact, I would even say, you're looking at a framework change in society. So you're literally trying to shift the way that young people grow up and help every young person become a change maker. So it's even bigger than the systems level approach. And I really think that, with the marketing approach that you've taken, we can go far in shifting those mindsets and really activating your customer base. So that leads in nicely to our third question here. So we know that Gen Z and Gen A are your main stakeholders who you're building your brand for, but they're also the ones that you're working to empower to create change in the world. So has this integration of change making for the good of all been a viable decision for you? And if you can just give us a little bit more on how you started to engage this target group around creating an everyone a change maker world, that would be great.
Yeah, so I think we feel it's our duty. If you're going to be selling products or services to a demographic, you need to think wider than that. And we think it's our duty to support the bigger issues and the role of change making within that audience. So it's not a nice to have for us. It's something that we feel passionately that we should be doing as a business. And I think that younger generation expects authenticity. So, you know, back to that one for one mentality, you know, they want to see more. They want to understand what exactly, oh, the INKEY Impact Fund, fantastic. What are you doing? You know, they're challenging, they're asking questions, they want authenticity and they want transparency. So it's really important to us that, you know, we're taking them on that journey to understand the things that we're trying to do. Is that easy? No, it is not. So it would be way easier to say, look at these school books we've given. But actually, it's quite a complex topic. So it is definitely a communications challenge and something that we've worked on over the last year. You know, we've been talking about Ashoka, we've been talking about the change making we're doing. What I would say is we've got a lot of learnings around what's worked and what hasn't. So we went out to the world and had a very lovely, you know, look at exactly what we were doing. And our consumers were like, great, move on. And actually, it wasn't until we started to connect the dots around what that means for them and the stories of the young people that, you know, that were change makers, and it kind of connected the dots and it started to become quite powerful. So our content now, we're sort of asking people, you know, what are you doing on a daily basis? You know, how are you implementing change making, you know, within your daily life? And that's really where we've started to get that connectivity, because people want to understand what it means for them, and they want to understand the reality of what it is versus a lovely ethereal, you know, we went out with a mission, we're gonna, you know, help to support 500,000 change makers over the next 5 years, and they kind of were like, cool. So it's really, you know, how is it real for me? You know, these are the young people, this is the impact you're making, make it real to them. So we've definitely gone on a learning journey over the last few months. I also think rooted in knowledge is really important, and we now have on our website, you know, learning materials. So supporting people, do you want to become a change maker? You know, what are some of the changes you can make, and really making it real and helping to support young people that are interested in this. So having those learning materials available, giving them the knowledge and education to be able to support them is super powerful. But they're not an easy bunch, are they?
No, really difficult generation.
We're much simpler, I feel, as millennials.
But I think, you know, that curiosity, that transparency isn't going anywhere. And I think the learning, to build on what Colette says, is you have to be prepared for all outcomes, especially on something that is essentially superfluous to the product. And this essentially is that. And so back to that authenticity piece, you have to make sure it's not just a you know, a direct impact. It's a, you know, it's a pretty singular transaction, because this generation in particular want, you know, to have the ability to zoom in and go in to a huge level of granular detail and understanding. So you almost have to, for this particular type of activation, be beautifully simple well, this is what it is, and this is why it's important for you. So let's call it, you know, first grade science. You know, cells are like little dots and you are made up of millions of them, right the way through to kind of college or degree level kind of science, where you have to explain what some biochemical structures are, i.e., well, actually, where specifically are you making this impact? What's the programs you're being involved in, and how many people, who's doing what, and have you thought about X, Y, and Z? You've got that level of spectrum of questions and provocations that you could be asked by the consumers. And we feel that having something ready that could, you know, address any level of that is going to be really important. But most important is you let them decide. I think that's the kind of big learning. It's don't try and shove something down people's throats, because they will resist that more than anything else, but try and engage them in a way that, you know, brings them in, and is something that, you know, they recognize as something they want to be part of, and then let them choose how much to be part of it. Do they just want to know it exists and maybe buy a product? Cool. You'd still be making change. Or do they really want to dig in and go, oh, actually, this might be something I can take, share with my friends, replicate in a different way, really get under the bones and bonnet of it, and understand what needs to be true for anything like that to happen, so they can be upskilled and, you know, take that with them on their journey. You have to be prepared for all outcomes.
And I'd say it's not going to be overnight. So just launching a partnership and saying, this is what we're doing, great, come along the journey with us. You know, it's a slow burn. It's taking time for people to, one, understand it, and then two, want to be part of it. So I think, you know, we're very aware that the way that we've approached this means that this is a long-standing thing, and it's going to take a lot of work for us to get our audience, you know, to understand and want to be part of it over a 3-year period versus a really shiny, exciting moment. We can do shiny, exciting moments, and the Hiram Changemaker kit we did was a really wonderful moment where, you know, consumers were buying a kit to literally impact the Rekindle School project. So that was wonderful. What that's not is sustainable. So we need to make sure that we've got that drumbeat of, this is what we're doing. You know, do you want to learn more? Here's some more knowledge on the subject. Do you want to get involved? And, you know, how do we take them on the journey? Like our team, you know, everybody's on this Changemaker journey. We're on a partnership journey with the Ashoka team, and how do we make that wonderfully build and be as enduring as possible over time?
Well, I mean, there's absolute authenticity here, and I'm positive that your customer base feels that. And you've brought it to light even in how you're involving folks from Gen A and Gen Z that are change makers themselves in selling this vision and this message. I mean, that's been one of the most amazing things, is how much you've integrated young change makers into this work and into your work beyond. I really agree that it's important to affect the lives of your customer base at large, and that it is a slow burn, like you said. When we're looking towards framework change or mindset shift, it really is. But you have power as this beloved brand, and there's influence there. And I love that you spend your time and effort to spark so many to take these steps to gain the knowledge that they need around the problems that surround them, and then take action on them. And in that moment, that knowledge plus action equals that self-actualization as change makers. So I really believe in the steps that you're taking to make that happen. So as a final question, before we move on to a few that we have in the chat, I'd ask, what would be your advice to companies who are trying to step out of their traditional transactional roles with young people and invest in creating this better world for them?
Listen to them. To Mark's point, don't force fit what you think is right for them. Whether you're talking commerce, brand, anything that you want to do with young people, make them part of it. Listen to them, get them to understand what's important to them, and the way they want to be spoken to, the way they want to take part. So I would say we think as marketeers we know the answers, and we don't. So listen and make them part of the journey versus giving them the answer would be my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels, I think, with how you bring a business to life, with how you'd engage young people, and make sure that you got something long lasting from a kind of a social change perspective. Listening and getting their insight being one thing, but also from a company perspective, you got to stay in the lane that you're in, and grab onto something that is going to be perceived as authentic. If there's one thing that people sniff out, it's when you're trying to pay lip service to something. And I think, you know, spending the right time up front to understand what that could be, and understand how that then could manifest itself via the partnerships that we've talked about before, because I think it's really difficult individually or as a single entity to have impact. I think all good things come with collaboration, like we've talked to already, but you can only collaborate if you are very squarely clear on what and why you are doing something, and why that is going to be best served and impact in the most effective way with partners who are squarely aligned to that same reason. And then building on that and coming back to something we touched on earlier, you know, how could that potentially be lined up for A, the long term, but B, on a vision that kind of weds those two things together? How does your kind of commercial vision and outcome and objective, how could that be in some which way connected to what you want to achieve on a bigger scale that could define your purpose? Because I think when that comes into play, you know, you could then start to make a better case for, you know, building longer term plans in how you invest back in social change over time.
I love that. And you truly are creating that bridge. So we have about 5 minutes left, and there are a few questions in the chat. One that I'm really interested in, I love looking at the internal work you're doing around building change-making culture, even beyond what you had initially. And so we have Daphne, and she said that she's interested to hear how you so explicitly focus on agency and social change-making when recruiting talent. She'd love to know how you specifically search for that talent and how you retain it.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I think, believe it or not, we've hired around 60 people in the last year, so it's been quite a rapid growth from a team perspective. But we're still lucky enough that we're small enough to be able to kind of find the right people that fit with the ethos of us as founders. So, you know, there will be multiple people interviewed for roles, but we do what we call a culture check. So before anybody enters our business, either Mark or myself will have a culture check with the applicant, and that is not an interview. They'll have gone through all the competency pieces with our team, and this is about culture fit. So we want to understand who they are as people, what matters to them, and actually are they a good fit for the company? And separating that from the application process is actually really important, and making sure that Mark and I feel like there's people coming into the business that reflect the values that we have, which go beyond selling pretty skincare, is really important to us. So that's the entry point into the business.
Yeah, and I think the team, whether it be through traditional recruitment channels or whether it's networks that we're involved in, they're pretty clear on a DNA of who someone needs to be in order to work at Be for Beauty and the INKEY List. I think, you know, we've been pretty clear on that from the get-go, and you know, we don't necessarily have a snappy acronym or anything else that would dictate that. We've just got a picture with 10 kind of things that we believe to be true from our own kind of character types that are kind of based in that entrepreneurial mindset, that agency, that resilience, and that will for change and joy for life. And we kind of wrote it down very flippantly on a scrap bit of paper and took a picture, and we flashed that up to employees at every team event. We weave it into different things throughout the business, whether it's how we structure meetings, whether it's anything else. We kind of try and keep the values of the business alive so that everyone ingratiates themselves in it, and therefore we recruit back for that ongoing. Because as we said before, you know, agency, resilience, and mindset is probably, particularly in the early days, more important than most things in terms of grades, competency, and experience when you're starting up.
And in terms of keeping the talent, it's just all about, you know, keeping them excited, keeping them understanding the value that they're making. So things like our empowerment collective, we're open to suggestions, challenges, what do you want to see in our company? I think it's being really open and listening to what is important to them, because it's often different to what you think. We offered a company shutdown, which was a week long, where we said, guys, you've worked way too hard over the pandemic. Let's all just take a breather. We were super excited. We thought that was going to be the best thing ever. And actually, there are other things that we've done within our company, like we've just sponsored a football kit for an LGBT football squad. And that in the business morale building was way better than a week off. And we're going, okay, maybe we're missing the mark on what we think is important to the team. So listen to what's important to them and support their change making endeavors is how we probably keep people here with us, excited and focused on making a bigger impact than just selling skincare.
Commercial devil in me is like, yeah, why can't we find a few more football teams?
I'll have to think about how Ashoka can start bringing football into our strategy here. I love that you also talked just about this idea of creativity and innovation and drive and resilience being these common threads within your culture, and also as the work that we're trying to embed and build within school systems as well, so that we have kids that are growing up this way, right? So just a final question here, and you can definitely keep it brief, because I think you could talk for a while on it. But so through our partnership, we've really learned what a powerful actor INKEY is just overall within your sector and within the world. And I can see that you have a vision for spreading that message of everyone a change maker outside of your customer base. So what's your vision for having a sector-wide impact? And what would you say to other corporations about why this idea of everyone a change maker is so critical for society overall?
It's a good question. I think beauty is very very fluid when it comes to trends. It's sort of in some categories, it's the very definition of the category having to react to trends. I think the danger in the medium term is people from our current vista get locked into stuff and therefore set very short-termist ways of, in their world, what they perceive to be as doing good. I think in order to future-proof a better way and to give the next generations the best chance of adapting and being agile to whatever situation that they are going to inherit, or whatever situation they are going to proactively be able to shape and be part of, they need to have a toolkit in order to do that. And back to the adage of give a man a fish, feed himself and a family for a while, teach him how to fish, and he'll be able to feed himself for a lifetime. I think having the ability to create change makers just enables everyone to have a template of how to fit making change into their life, their mission, their purpose, no matter what that is or what that could be. And having that skill set is going to pay back multiple times over versus having quite a singular, maybe direct output that maybe we can only see at this time or of this time. And therefore, raising the expectations, setting a paradigm shift on how ESG targets could be in terms of creating change makers. Yes, it's not as sexy as buy one of these and you get an hour of education or whatever it looks like. You could probably get there, but making sure that you are setting an enduring blueprint for how people could enact change from an ongoing basis is, it will be a game changer.
Mark's brought out his fish metaphor. I can't do better than that, Tia. I'll leave it.
Well, I love the fish metaphor, because at Ashoka we say you don't give a man to fish, you don't teach a man to fish, you revolutionize the fishing industry. And so we are so happy to be revolutionizing the fishing industry with INKEY.
Thank you, Tia.
Thanks so much. This was a lot of fun, and can't wait to continue our work and continue learning together.
Thanks. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, guys. Have a great